Hello, Sharpies, and welcome to Steel Sharpens Steel. Of course, as is the case with most weeks, Anthony Turner was first in the comments. I was a little bit worried for a second because actually uh, we didn't see any comments for a little bit, but we actually got our first two, so thank you. We want to welcome to the show a woman whose name I actually did not know until today because we just knew her as Cee Jay. So, Cee Jay, introduce yourself to the people.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to be on with these wonderful folks here. It's Cecily or CJ for those who didn't know my government name. But it's good to be on, and I look forward to it. It's always fun hanging out with you all. And I know I've been missing a couple of weeks, so why not come back on the show instead of commenting? I beat you, Anthony. I beat you.
I
Ooh,
know that's right. Ooh,
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 challenge.
shalom. All right, Cecily. She said, nah, see what you not finna do is scoop me on this one, bro. So that is excellent. We have an interesting show for you tonight. Of course, the cornerstone of our show is going to be a discussion about the 1619 Project, and we hope that many of you have started watching the show, the series on Hulu. From an artistic and production design element, it is extraordinary and exquisite. And so there's a lot to unpack in these episodes, and we're going to cover the first two tonight. And then we're going to have a segment for the throughout the rest of Black History Month, just talking about the individual episodes and what they meant to us, et cetera, et cetera. But of course, we are not going to get started with that. We're going to do, first of all, our little shout out to Cecily. Look at our special guest. Look at that. And we're going to kick things off with a segment we're calling Trump is Not Having a Good Week,
Part 76.
76. So, those of you who keep track with the most famous orange person this side of a circus peanut, he's had a couple of challenges this week. Here's one of them, that the campaign suit against the Washington Post has been dismissed. And if you're wondering why it took so long, uh, the Justice, Ketanji Jackson, being added to the Supreme Court apparently caused a delay in that. And so now he knows that it is officially true that he is lost. So, CJ, I'm going to let you weigh in on this one real quick. What do you think about Donald Trump and his spurious lawsuits? Another one against Woodward is that he probably won't win the $50 million lawsuit against Bob Woodward because of First Amendment's issues. What is your feeling about how the former president and multiple lawsuit facer is dealing with his former strategy of just trying to sue everybody and their mama?
Well, we're in a litigious society anyway. I've been saying that for years, and Donald Trump is the epitome of this litigious, or he's the poster child for this litigious era that we're in, and that's his. As we know, his claim is to deflect and deny. His plan is to deflect and deny, and these lawsuits are all a part of it. The sad part is that despite him losing these lawsuits and despite them being dismissed and things like that, his diehard base is still going to follow him off that cliff. They're unfortunately not falling off that cliff fast enough, but they're still going to do it. And it's sad. It's yeah, I don't even know however before the street. Oh Lord, Vera is so true. But it's and that's the thing that's really upsetting, is that people don't realize that one, not only is this a problematic because there are cases that truly need to be tried in our court system that are being held up because of this BS. People don't realize that our tax dollars are also going to fight this. Yeah, he
Exactly.
has a bunch of lawyers behind, but our tax dollars are running the court system. They're
Mhm.
paying the salaries of people who are having to work through working the system to deal with frivolous lawsuits, despite the fact that they're frivolous. And despite the fact that they shouldn't have gotten to this point. But I was telling somebody earlier today, I said it's a shame that we as a society, and I'm talking about the collective we, have kind of lost our sense of responsibility, our common sense, everything. And that's what has led us to this point. That's what led him to being president. That's what led to all of these lawsuits. That's what led to January 6th. That's what has led to this increase in violence towards each other, be it on the grounds of race or gender identity or things like this. We have lost this common sense or a common sense of common sense. We've lost it, and that's where we are.
I was talking about that. Similar to you, I was talking about that earlier this week about specifically, since this is the world I live in, specifically the United States of America, that we've lost any sense of personal accountability. So everything is always somebody else's fault, hence the litigious society. I so much believe that it's not my fault that I am going to take you to court. You know, I threw water on the floor, and then when I slipped and fell in it, that is not my fault. It's your fault, and I'm going to take you to court. And so that sort of thing has got us where, that sort of thing has got us where we are now. And I can't.
It's that I'm sorry you took offense to me harming you. That's what it is. It's not, I'm sorry I offended you or I'm sorry I harmed you. It's I'm sorry you took offense to me harming you. And that's where we are, unfortunately.
We are simultaneously the victim and the oppressor. Like, you know, I punched you and I hurt my hand, so you should say you're sorry to me. Like, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and I see it over and over again. That's why we can't get anybody to show up to the polls. That's why we don't have anybody paying attention to the right things. That's why everybody is letting, you know, reality TV tell them how to live their lives. Like, all of this, it's all part and parcel. Yeah.
Well, one of the other things that we continually face in terms of people who are not having good weeks, who haven't had a good week since they stepped onto the national stage, is what in the hell is Santos doing this week? Possibly the biggest issue facing Monsieur Santos is that, according to Talking Points memo, a staffer who was in a meeting actually recorded Santos admitting that he lied to everyone. And so, bruh man cannot catch a break. He just cannot do it. And so this, after he also agreed to voluntarily step down, according to him, voluntarily, allegedly. And you have to use allegedly in Santos. You can't have a sentence without allegedly in it. If Santos is also in it, he voluntarily, allegedly, stepped down from his committee appointments because he didn't want to become a focus of blah, blah, blah. He's going to step down from those appointments until all of this foolishness is done and sorted. No, bro.
No.
Like, it's never ending.
You have this admitted liar, this uneducated buffoon, but again, that goes back to our collective failure as a society, that we're allowing these uneducated buffoons to lead us, voluntarily stepping down from his committee assignments. But on the flip, the Republicans are voting out highly intelligent women from committees who are actually working to support their constituents, and not, this isn't their grift.
Well, actually, that brings us into our next segment, which is exactly on that topic of McCarthy removing Ilhan Omar from her appointment. And so this Muslim woman, one of the first Muslim women actually elected to Congress, not the first, but one of the first. And I think she is the first foreign-born Muslim woman elected to Congress. And supposedly she was removed on the basis of some comments that were determined to be anti-Semitic. And so that was the rationale that McCarthy used in terms of removing him from the committee. But I gotta say, there were some people who had some very pointed things to say about that, and among them was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And so we're going to show you a little clip of what she had to say about Kevin McCarthy's shenanigans and antics in removing this woman from this vital position while he was engaged in a whole lot of other foolishness. Let's take a look.
Be nice for 1 minute.
Thank you. Now, as a fellow New Yorker, I think one of the things that we should talk about here is also one of the disgusting legacies after 9/11 has been the targeting and racism against Muslim Americans throughout the United States of America. And this is an extension of that legacy. Consistency, there is nothing consistent with the Republican Party's continued attack except for the racism and incitement of violence against women of color in this body. I had a member of the Republican caucus threaten my life, and you all and the Republican caucus rewarded him with one of the most prestigious committee assignments in this Congress. Don't tell me this is about consistency. Don't tell me that this is about a condemnation of anti-Semitic remarks when you have a member of the Republican caucus who has talked about Jewish space lasers and an entire amount of tropes, and also elevated her to some of the highest committee assignments in this body. This is about targeting women of color in the United States of America. Don't tell me, because I didn't get a single apology when my life was threatened. Thank you.
You better slap that book. Come on, Ocasio-Cortez.
She is awesome.
Yeah, she killed it.
We invoked her entire Baptist minister spirit in there.
I know that's right. I don't know if she was going to the Abyssinian up there in Harlem, but
I wanted to put a little boom, boom, little,
yeah. She was doing the thing, and you saw all the people who were applauding behind her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All of those people were Black people.
Mm-hmm.
All those hands clapping behind her, especially at the end. And I think that may have been Richie Torres, who was also a New York congressperson, off to the, on the right-hand side of the screen, but behind her left. And so she was telling the truth.
Right.
You say Ilhan Omar gets taken to task for talking about Jewish people being about the Benjamins, and, whether or not, I mean, that's obviously a rap lyric, and whether or not, but anyway, she apologized for that. I don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene has ever apologized for talking about Jewish space lasers. No. I don't think she's ever apologized for anything that she said.
Of course not, because that would make her have to admit that she was wrong. And she's never going to admit that she's wrong. I mean, we have rapists and con artists and everything still serving in Congress and leading committees. And I'm sorry, Speaker of the House, but no. Ilhan makes a poorly worded statement, and that's how I'm going to say it. Yeah,
and go ahead.
And she has to be removed. And again, like AOC said, this is nothing but an attack on Black women, because we have shown, Black women have shown over and over and over again that we're going to work, and we're going to work for the people. They don't want that. You don't want a group of people who are actually going to do anything, a group of people who are actually going to hold you accountable. No, you want to weaken them so that they can't hold you accountable and make you do what you were elected to do. I'm sorry, this made me mad. I'm going to call them.
No, bring that. I'm loving it.
You ain't got to call them nothing. Don't be calling nothing. Joy, why don't you weigh in, because this is a woman-centered issue, a woman of color-centered issue. And since I've got two women of color on the panel, I'm going to step back because I want to make sure that your voices are heard on this issue.
I appreciate that very much. And, I want to piggyback on something that Cee Jay was saying around targeting women of color. And I see this exact same thing in corporate spaces. Women we hold you accountable. Black women are going to say, you said this. We got receipts. We bring the smoke all the time. We hold ourselves to a high standard, which means you're not going to be able to hide behind mediocrity when we're shouting this excellence on you. All of those things are not personally threatening, but they are mentally threatening to, the majority, et cetera, because they got to work harder. They're going to shine a light on the nonsense I've been doing. And you can't tell us what to do. Not in a bad way. It's just, we know you're wrong. So why should we listen to you be wrong? Just do what's right. That makes us uncontrollable, also makes us a threat. And so the best thing you can do is work the base up into a froth, get away with a bunch of nonsense to get rid of the very people that are not afraid to haul this country kicking and screaming into a true democracy.
Ooh.
Say it. You better say a true democracy. So we're going to pivot a little bit to a slightly lighter topic. Now, I want to say right now, off rip, I have seen some people address the subject of this next conversation on a variety of different subjects. And I'm telling you right now, I am not about to get stung by the hive. But it is no lie that Beyonce tickets be expensive.
Did we know they were gonna be?
We did, but what I don't think people knew was that they would have to be like foregoing dentistry or mortgage payments. Like I literally saw it on Instagram where a woman was telling her fiance they're saving up for a house, right? They've been saving up for 10 months for a house. And she says, hey, babe, I know we're saving up for a house, but I just want to take some money from our housing fund and buy some Beyonce tickets. And he's like, oh, yeah, no, babe. You said you'd be engaged because that would make you happy. And so we got engaged. You said you wanted a house that would make you happy. And so we're getting a house. And so, no, I think, we need to keep our eyes on the prize. We need to keep our eyes on the bigger vision. And so, no, well, some of that money's mine. He says, because she says $1,000 of that money is mine. He says, well, $710 of that.
And she's like, well, just give me my money back. I buy what I want with it.
And he said, oh, okay, well, the engagement is off. So I'm going to get you your money.
He said, I'll send you your money and that ring,
right.
The whole engagement's off. I'm out.
Yeah, no, we finna be done. So, and she was like, wait, are you really? No. Well, I'm just going to come get my money. Ma'am, I'm just going to say it. This woman is an incredible performer. And if she rode a lightning horse to my house in that outfit, I might throw a rent check on a ticket for real. But I've been looking at some of these prices now. Lowball, you need an oxygen mask before you head into orbit seats in Los Angeles. We're listed at 11, or not Los Angeles. It was, I think Atlanta was one of the first states. We're $1,100. Floor seats in Atlanta were $13,999. Now, I'm sure that's VIP experience, and you get to walk past her and like sniff a lock of one of her braids or something like that. I'm sure there's like a whole comprehensive lightning horse experience, and she'll look at you and lock eyes with you for a second. It will transform your soul. I'm sure there's a whole lot going on for $14,000. But when your toofus has that big ass hole in it, and you talk about Beyonce, listen, I saw Homecoming like a year later on HBO or Showtime or whatever. I certainly will have a better experience than being in orbit if I wait until it comes on Showtime or HBO or even pay-per-view. I don't care. I'll pay $79.99 to watch Beyonce on a pay-per-view for sure. It's been a long time since Homecoming, and Homecoming was an amazing show. But I have not it like that. So Ain't gonna be no Beyonce. I was looking at Anita Baker tickets like,
Right.
and that's
Right.
with all my heart. I love you, baby.
Right.
And them tickets was still
Listen,
high.
Beyonce broke my soul with the
I know
ticket
that's
prices.
right. Broke
I'm
my
just
soul,
saying.
broke my wallet, broke
We just broke
I'm
my
just
soul.
broke my
right.
credit.
Beyonce broke my soul. I'm like, I saw a meme earlier that said, I need Beyonce to bring those ticket prices down because she forgot she was telling people to quit their job last year. I was like, right, you need to calm it down. Y'all, that's my coworker. I shared this with her so she can come on. We've
I
been
know that's
talking
right.
about concert tickets. She and I have been talking about concert tickets. Yeah, this one it's a bit much. It's a bit much. But yeah, Beyonce
Listen.
broke my soul. I'm sitting here and I'm going to say this and listen, Beehive, don't come after me. I like Beyonce, but I've never been one to go run out to buy an album or run out to buy tickets, or I haven't seen all of Homecoming. So yeah, I know. I know.
That catch me off guard.
The swarm is coming for my neck. I know, but there's some artists I love. If y'all brought Luther back from the dead, I love me some Luther Vandross. Wanted to be one of the backup singers, not the three dancing, one of the big girls in the stool. Wanted to be one of those, but I ain't paying $13,000 for a reincarnated Luther. I can't do it.
Wait, she said not even for Lazarus Luther, y'all. Luther ain't getting none of her coinage.
No.
So in honor of
Anthony.
In honor of Cee Jay's very candid, very, very candid expose of herself about not seeing all of Homecoming, which, I mean, in Black History Month, I don't even know if those words should have come out of your mouth, but that's
okay. I'm sorry.
I have something just for you to protect you from the venom of the hivage. And so this is the Cee Jay Memorial Beekeeper's helmet to keep them stingers away from you, sis, because
oh my God.
They are going to be coming for you.
Yeah, they are.
Listen, you're an amazing performer, Beyonce Knowles Carter. Absolutely amazing. I'm just going to have to wait. That's all. It's some people, it's going to be buying. And I am a city card holder. And when they told me registering to be in the lottery to be able to get tickets does not guarantee you a ticket, I was like, yo, people, it's crazy. And I know she's already added dates to Los Angeles. The Los Angeles dates haven't even gone on sale. But I knew there were going to be some Los Angeles dates added because there was a 9-day gap between Los Angeles and Vancouver. So I knew there were going to be add some things. This is the spot.
I'm going to use the Beehive against themselves because they cannot help. They cannot help but sneak their phones into the concert and take a little clip video here and a clip video there and a quick YouTube that gets taken down in about 10 hours and blah, blah, blah. That's how I saw
the Dubai stuff.
Place.
Oh, is it?
And I can sit at home and just piece together that whole concert
Listen,
about a week after it happens.
They're gonna take it down. All I did, 2-3 weeks ago, tried to put up a 1-minute clip of Anthony Hamilton in Biloxi, Mississippi, and Facebook took it down.
That's
so come on. Nothing against Anthony now, because I love me some Anthony. Been to see him 4 times.
That was probably like his family reunion or something in Biloxi. All I know is they had cell phones in Dubai for that show. She got paid $24 million for an hour. Now, I know it takes a lot. She has a fabulous show. She's got to pay those dancers. They've got to rehearse, and they've been rehearsing for a long time. I love the Renaissance album.
They got to get that horse across the ocean.
First of all, they got to trap the lightning. They got to put it in that plastic horse shell, whatever. It's a great album. I think it's arguably her best album, like top to bottom. I listened to the whole thing, which is not something I usually do. I think there's a lot of great music on there, and I know the show is going to be amazing. It's just $13,000 for the good seats is a lot.
Right.
It's a lot. Blue Ivy needs to make me an omelet for $13,000, and Rumi and Sir need to hand me some Ivy Park swag or something for $13,000. Them kids need to, like, paint my T-shirt custom, put their initials on it or something. But that's that, and we love you, Beyonce. Can't wait for it to make it to cable or streaming.
Yeah.
On Tidal.
Will be your second wave of revenue,
We sure will be, because that's a lot of revenue that's going to be coming your way. So that's awesome. Now, let's get to the meat and potatoes of the show. We are going to be talking about the 1619 Project, and we are going to share just a little bit about what makes this show special and what we have on this show. So I'm sharing it, adding it to the stream now. There we go. And here we go.
This is the 1619 Project.
Monday's child is ever smiling. Tuesday's child will play and snore. Wednesday comes with a gun. Thursday's tears have just begun. Friday ships are filled with crying.
In the United States, race defines our lives from beginning to end. Our race is listed on our birth certificates when we're born and on our death certificates when we die. We're used to checking boxes to designate our racial category, whether it's for school applications or bank loans or a driver's license. And yet most of us don't stop to question just how we arrived at the racial classifications we've become so accustomed to.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there just because I don't want us to get cut. But
I was wondering how long we was going to go.
Yeah. I just wanted to provide some context, and just to let you all know, race is the second episode in the series. The first episode was democracy, and it kind of covered some of the early issues of how folks were defined in the country and rights and things of that nature. I will start off by saying that this is a lush and beautifully shot program. If this were 20 years ago, this would have been a panel of people kind of set in a semicircle, like a Real Housewives reunion on like a Phil Donahue stage. If you're lucky, a big screen behind them that occasionally would show an image, and it would just be a conversation. And what they have done, I feel, with this series is create a very poetic, they're all predicated on a particular essay out of the collection of essays of the 1619 Project. And that's what it feels like. It feels like a very languid discussion about the topic that is intercut with some really hard-hitting material in this episode in particular. And I'm going to let you ladies jump in, because again, this, even though it's titularly about race, they spend a lot of time on how race particularly impacts Black women.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to turn the stage over to you. But I really thought and think that from the episode where she's talking about her dad and what her dad has experienced and his pride in having an American flag out on the front lawn all the time, and talking to people who knew her father who has passed, and talking about her mother and everything else. This episode really gets into how Black women and what the legacy of how Black women were assaulted during the period of enslavement and everything else. So, Joy, I'm going to turn it over to you, primarily because you kind of look like Nicole, except for the red hair. So you go on ahead and kick this conversation off.
All right. Well, one of the things that I liked about both of the first two episodes was how deep she went into she went into understanding how something started, and why we got where we got, just understanding that the level of democracy and like little bit of justice that we have now came from the first Black people that got elected to Congress and everything. But also in the second episode, one of the things I think is coming out from this whole show, that from what I've seen so far, is holding up a mirror to America and saying, this is what you look like, and we're not going to let you ignore the fact that we've been here all along. So hence the fact that we've had so much to do with democracy. The thing about the Black women and race and digging into like husbandry and the mistreatment of Black women as they were enslaved and brought over and forcefully bred and repeatedly SA'd, I'm not going to say it, to breed more and more revenue for the whatever plantation. And then bringing that forward into how Black women are treated even to this day, that journey needs to be understood a lot more by people who say they want to be allies to Black women, want to understand the stresses that a Black woman goes through. Watch this show, basically. But I'm sorry, Cee Jay, go ahead.
No, I'm listening and agreeing with you. I will admit I had watched part of the first episode, and then you and I spoke or text, and I went back and I watched the first episode again, and then I watched the second episode, and enjoyed all of it. The second episode, especially when they were talking about women, especially when she spoke with the young woman who had lost her child. That one really, really struck me. There was so much in this. When she started talking about her dad, who was former military, and the flag in his front yard, and I thought about my family members who are former military or retired military, and how despite how they were treated, despite being from Alabama and really facing racism in the 60s, they're some of the most patriotic folks. These retired military, these gentlemen who are retired military. I thought about when she was again talking about women and how they're mistreated and how our health issues are discarded. And I know, Joy, you and I have had this conversation about this. And I thought back to, and I share, I'm very candid. I had a hysterectomy in my 30s. I had a doctor when in my early 30s who was, or late 20s, early 30s, who was of color. I don't think she was Black. We never had that conversation. But she knew I was single. She knew I was childless. And the last thing she wanted to do was for me to have a hysterectomy. She went as far as trying to find me a man to introduce me to and do everything she could. She's like, I'm gonna, ended up moving. Was still having medical problems, ended up seeing a medical classmate of hers who was a white male. And he was like, well, we can do a hysterectomy. That was his first argument. I think there were a lot of things that happened that he didn't do to help me. And I ended up having to have the hysterectomy, before I could have children, biological children of my own. But I do believe, I think I was too young and too naive then to understand the implication of that. And now looking back on it, I understand that had I had a Black physician, a Black female physician, that things would be different. When I did have Dr. Brown, I think things were different leading up to that point because of her. And there's so many women who face so many issues. I've heard from friends who've had issues because of the doctors who have not believed them, who have not supported them. And it's sad because it's not just an issue though that is um, white doctors versus black doctors, because
No.
a lot of black doctors are trained in white medical schools by white physicians, and they still have that same thinking. You just want medicine. Your pain is not really what it is. Black women can deal with pain better.
Mhm.
Black people can deal with pain better. So I'm not going to treat them the same way I would treat someone else. And our issues are ignored, or we deal with them, or they're undiagnosed.
Mhm.
I had that issue with a black female doctor who told me for months that I had stress, years that I had stress. Went to see another doctor, and within a month I was having surgery. He was like, "It's not stress, you're sick."
Hmm.
You know,
So you know,
one of
I'm
the
sorry.
things that really no, not at all, CJ. One of the things that really stood out to me was that it was very pointedly stated that this isn't even just about quality of care based on status or economic
Right.
capability, because
Right.
the very poignant story of the woman, and you're introduced to her story, and then we kind of move away from her story, and then we come back to it. There's an implication at the beginning of the episode that you kind of know that there was a loss, but you don't really fully understand what it
Mhm.
is. And you know, she was basically put off by this white female physician. Oh, no, no, I'll see you, you know, I know it's twins, I'll see you in 4 weeks. And it ends up that one of her babies died in utero, and they cut to pictures of Serena Williams, who also had postpartum issues. One of the most outstanding athletes ever, wealthy beyond comprehension, notable, not someone you would want to have a news story about having a complication in your medical facility at all. It's
Mhm.
Serena Williams. And even then, she had to fight. And she does an excellent job of connecting it all the way to the back of during the period of enslavement, where the dehumanization of Black people in general, but Black women
Mhm.
especially, because she goes into the history. There was a period of time where if the father were white, then the child could inherit the benefits of his
Mhm.
whiteness,
Mhm.
including inheriting
Land,
his
title.
property and everything else. We
Mhm.
talked about this a number of episodes ago. And so they literally changed that.
Mhm.
So
Virginia.
if you were issued from a Black woman, then you were Black, because, to Joy's point that she raised a little bit earlier, that meant you could be then enslaved as a Black child. And so when the period of transport of enslaved Africans slowed down, it just became producing
Yeah.
new people to be enslaved via the quote unquote breeding process of matching these people, regardless
Mhm.
of whether or not they had emotional ties to a different spouse or anything else. So
Mhm.
that was one of the hardest hitting parts of this episode for me.
You know, just going back to the parallel between how Black women are treated in the medical field. You know, your needs are ignored. People don't believe you. And there was always, drug. These it's profiling, right, in the
Mhm.
Yes,
medical world.
it
And
is.
there's a lot of similarities between it, because it's not about the color, race, gender, whatever of the medical person. It's about the fact that they're treating a Black woman. It's the
Mhm.
same way we see with Black men and the police. It's not about the age, sex, race, or whatever of the person. It's the police department that is treating Black men this way,
Mhm.
regardless of status. We've seen celebrities get arrested, get
Mhm.
arrested and trying to get into their own home, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter how much money you have, where you're from, whatever, how cocoa fair you may be. Black people get treated different.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Absolutely, they do, and it's really one of the best things I think about this series is that we're so used to seeing racial trauma theater
Yeah.
played out. Like whenever you have something that's talking about the Black experience, it's presented in this way that is almost inherently traumatic because it's shining the spotlight on the very worst element. So the Tyree Nichols
Mhm.
footage being released was, people were literally, I refuse to watch it. I will not watch this footage because I know it's going to be harmful to me. And so much of our explanations about Black history have been framed in that way. And one of the things I really like about this series, just from a production standpoint, is that it's long, beautiful shots, slow, delicate pushes into the subject. And it's a wide shot of Nicole talking to her interview subject, talking to an expert. And it's in a natural setting. It's never in like a studio where it's like the news. It's just framed so beautifully, and it's a great way to me to tackle hard-hitting information because there are historical sketches and lithographs and things like that kind of show some things, but it's not the same as seeing police hoses and people being beaten and all these other things. It's presented in a very academic way, which just really to me shines the spotlight on the fact that F you, Ron DeSantis, to say that something like this doesn't have educational. And that's not one of our big topics this week, but Cee Jay, since you said ooh, I'm gonna let you go on ahead and ooh.
No. I'm upset. Well, Ron is Hitler and he's trying to whitewash all of Florida.
Yes.
My latest fire thing with it, and I guess because I'm 30 minutes from Florida now, it really impacts me. And I do see Florida news every day now. The whole new school issue, or was it New College of Florida? I can't think of it.
No, it's the new, that was a liberal bastion, a private liberal bastion that he's trying to change into liberal university.
They have changed it. They fired the president. You got a whole new board. You got a whole new curriculum. And we won't get started. That's just, it is. I was saying today again, having this conversation. I said, this isn't CRT. I said, because you all don't know what CRT is. I'm like, hell, I don't know what CRT is. And I spent a year in law school. I don't know what CRT is. But I know this ain't it. This is history. This is pure D history. And Ron DeSantis' denial of history is why we're headed towards this new area in Florida.
I wanted to touch on that before I forget what I'm about to say. You said that DeSantis is like Hitler. Thank you. But you got to remember, Hitler studied the American South when he was trying to figure out how to isolate and subject another race. And what they saw in the American South, they're like, ooh, that's a lot. We'll just get them and kill them. We're not going to enslave them for years. Like, they mellowed out with, that's the wrong way to say it, but when you think about the fact that DeSantis is in the South and he's getting his ways from Hitler, he's really just exactly what he was always meant to be since it started in the American South. I don't think anybody that lost the war of northern aggression, I don't think any of those people ever really changed their mind. And they read it on to their children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and everything. And so it's just been intensified, and here we are again. They've been waiting to come. Well, when we thought we were making progress, they were just tunneling under us, Right.
And the impact of DeSantis goes a lot further than Florida, obviously, because it was reported as reported in the New York Times. The College Board actually changed the curriculum, not so that it might become more acceptable to Florida, so that students in Florida could actually take this course. So damn everybody else. Forget everybody else who actually wanted to study the material. That's immaterial because it's really important to kowtow to DeSantis. And when you think about where we are headed in this country, to your point, Joey, talking about people who still carry the flag, and there was a TikTok about a black man asked this white guy who was carrying a Confederate battle flag, not the flag of the Confederacy, it's a Confederate battle flag. And he said, why do you carry that flag? And he says, because it's about my heritage, because my family fought to save their farm. And the black guy said, well, who worked that farm? And he said, My family did. Do you know how much a slave cost back then? And then he caught himself and he was like, and then the clip ends. Here's the thing. I don't know who needs to hear this. That should perhaps be a name of a segment. I don't know who needs to hear this. There were like 3 basic classes of white folks in the antebellum period in the South. So you had the planters. Those were the ones sipping mint juleps and stuff on the porch of the big house while their wives were fanning them. Well, actually, Fanny was probably fanning the wife. And they were doing balls and Gone with the Wind and all of that. That was like the upper crust. And they had thousands of acres and they needed lots of people to work those acres. And Nicole Hannah Jones talks about that in this episode, actually, about this one big plantation that was owned, and the wife of the owner who was a bit distressed by what was going on that plantation. Then you had just like the yeoman farmers. So these were people who basically had their own farm. They most likely did not have any enslaved people working for them. Some of them did have some enslaved people, but they weren't taking their goods by and large to market. They weren't exporting thousands of
existing on their own land.
They were making their food, basically, is what they were. And then you have poor whites, and they didn't own nothing. But the problem is, well, that's true. The problem is that all of those people benefited from the entire systemic exclusion and anti-Black racism, because the poorest white could do or say anything and could not put any harm on another Black person unless that property was damaged, at which point the planter would have a case against that poor white. But the Black person never would. And so he can say his family was protecting his farm. Listen, if your family was fighting for the South instead of protecting their own property and realizing that the plantation system was something that was actively hurting them economically, then they were as dumb as you are. Because you should have been siding with the people who didn't own anything, and that's the Black people. Because honestly, what you needed was that plantation subdivided into 1,000 smaller farms. That's what you needed. But here you are sitting here because you are so entranced with this white aristocracy that you thought you needed to protect, some Lily White and Maggie May that you would idolize and put on an alabaster pedestal, that you acted against your own interests in order to protect a way of life that was predicated on the most hateful and horrible and long-lasting institution of domination of another people that has existed since the time of the pharaohs. And they didn't talking about my family's trying to protect my farm. Bullshit.
And they didn't learn. They went to the Capitol on January 6th.
Exactly. They were right there.
Right.
I don't know if you put this up, Joy, but Chan.
I loved it. I wanted to say something, but y'all were talking. That was the best.
Chan making points, except on the show. So get on here, Chan.
Y'all's next guest.
I hope so. I really hope so. And Anthony says it's passed from generation to generation. It is. It's learned behavior, and the impact is still hitting us. And that's really, I think, one of the best messages about the way that the 1619 Project is passing on to us, because they are making it very present that the impacts of the past, she said it in the first episode, there is nothing about this country and its history that has not been impacted by the Black people who were enslaved and brought over here. Not one whit of our country's history is not impacted by that systemic prejudice and racism and degradation and subjugation of the Black people who were the engine of creating this country. Just flat out. Was it Joy, were you talking about this last week about, you were, about the white man who had to look up that Crispus Attucks was Black because he didn't believe you?
Yes.
You were talking in your session. Exactly. So this is part and parcel of the lesson that needs to be learned. And while this is on Hulu, the commercial breaks are really not that pressing, and each episode is just about an hour long. And
Mm-hmm.
what they do is they have a nice long opening segment, so that by the time you get to the first commercial break, you feel like I could use this break. And then they have like two breaks that are a little bit shorter. Plus, if you're watching them, they show commercials for like Abbott Elementary and stuff. They show Black Stuff commercials in between, so it's really worth watching.
The commercials weren't that bad because
They weren't.
Because I forget. To be honest, by the time that I watched the second one, I forgot there were commercial breaks and popped up, and I was like, "Oh, that was a commercial." Okay.
Right, time to go grab some snacks.
Now, I will say, the first one about democracy can drag a little bit because she goes into a whole lot of detail. It's really good information. Like, there's more Black history taught in that hour than most people get in their entire lifetime, right?
Exactly.
Well, more than in the AP course that remains.
Say that.
Part.
But so it might be easy, or you might be tempted to be like, I'll pause and come back to it later. Push through, because that first I'll watch the whole thing. Don't skip the rest of it. But everything that she talks about from then on builds on the things and ideas that you see in that first episode. And then she gets into race. The next one is going to be music. And I think this is going to be, how Black folks used to watch Roots every year at Thanksgiving or whatever. Start watching 1619 Project every year.
And there is a 1619 podcast. So you can listen to the 1619 podcast while you're riding in your car. And they do, I imagine that the music episode that is forthcoming is going to draw a lot from the music episode of the 1619 Project. So if you have not listened, it's really, this is, I hope, hello Hulu, hello Nicole and Oprah, I want the Blu-ray series, I want the podcast downloadable so it can't be snatched off Apple Podcasts. I want everything. I want the book and the Blu-rays and the podcast all in one kind of multimedia thing. You can sell it on Amazon. You can do what you want. I'll buy it from 1619project.com. Exactly. But I want the digital. I have the book. I want a whole digital suite of things, so I can just sit down and kind of throw it whenever I want. Just something for y'all to think about. We'll sell it here on Steel Sharpens Steel for a very tiny sliver of the cost, of course. It really is excellent. And during Black History Month, I really can't think of any better way to sit down in a place that is not going to harsh your soul.
Yeah.
There are some things where you're gonna suck your teeth and be like, see, that's that bullshit right there. But it's not gonna be gasping and turning away and
there's nothing.
Why'd
like
you
that.
do that to me? It's Oprah. Okay, so just know it's Oprah. And it's sensitive, smart, loving Oprah from the Iyanla Vanzant beloved era. not when she had, when she was trying to be hella controversial and stuff. Really an excellent series. What would you ladies like to say to close out your feelings about the 1619 Project? What else? I mean, you mentioned, Joy, that the next one is going to be music. Is there anything that you are particularly looking forward to in the remainder of the episodes that you think are going to be especially present for you?
I think the one after music is either like style and fashion or something along those lines. But I was looking at how they get little clips of like looking forward, and I really want all white people under 40 to watch that episode, understand all these things that they mistakenly think they discovered in their sleep, I guess, came from somewhere, and give credit where credit is due for how Black culture has become, American cool. American cool.
You're talking about the music episode or both the music and the fashion? Because I'm halfway. I was halfway through the music episode. I haven't watched it all.
And capitalism is actually after music. So capitalism probably incorporates fashion and some of the other things that Black creativity and energy have driven as far as the marketplace is concerned.
As people love to forget that we had our own stuff all through. Whenever they left us alone, we would just build up empires, and they would come kick it like a little kid with an ant bed. Just why?
Right? Because
the only thing. Credit.
Credit. So
Right.
white people taking credit for other things, and I have to thank. We have a couple of more things to talk about, but while we're talking about credit, I have to thank Joy Stevens for introducing me to The Extraordinary Attorney Wu on Netflix. And there is a character on this show, Attorney Jang, who is an absolute dillweed. And he is basically white because he's taking credit for things. The three rookie attorneys who saved his ass in this huge case, he basically took credit with the senior partner and kind of owner, the lead partner of the law firm. And it's really disgusting, but it's a great show, a wonderful show.
Putting that on my list.
Yeah, put it on your list, please.
It is the most charming, endearing.
Charming.
Yeah, all
Super
the feels.
charming.
Yeah,
all of every single one of the feels. The feels are felt. It's a really good show. But that's not the only thing that we have to talk about. Coming up in our segment, Seen on the Web, here are a couple of videos that were really present to us this week. And the first one is about an ally who is really taking it to some of these folks and what they are saying and how they are moving about us. And so let's take a listen.
On today's episode of White People Wanting Applause But Catching the Clap, when I talk about issues in Alabama, my home that I will not leave, somebody holding a fish or wearing a pair of pit vipers in their profile picture, or Mr. User Bunch of Numbers will comment and say, I'm an Alabamian and I love it here. If you want to be surrounded by crime and poverty, you should move somewhere else. And when I point out that our crime rate is the fourth highest in the nation and our poverty is 16.5%, while the national average is 11%, they say all the crime is in Birmingham, Montgomery, and Mobile, and all the poverty is in the Black Belt. What do all those places have in common? They're full of Democrats. If we could get rid of them, all these problems you bitch about will just go away. Now, Mobile has a Republican mayor, but do you want to know what Birmingham, Montgomery, Mobile, and all of the Black Belt do have in common? They're majority black. Now, I know you said full of Democrats, but I also know what you mean when you said full of Democrats. And I also know what you mean when you said if we could get rid of them, our problems would vanish. Why do you lefties always have to bring race into it? It's never a race issue until you bring it up. Sounds about white.
I mean,
okay. That's
go
my
ahead,
home
go
state.
ahead, Steve.
That is my home state. I love this dude. I follow him. I posted, and there's somebody watching the show today that was on a text thread with me with a white person who said they were leaving Montgomery because there was too much crime. And he said he was coming to a suburb here of Mobile. I said, there's crime down here too. But what Birmingham and Montgomery have are now black men as mayors, Morehouse grads, by the way, black men who are mayors. And now all of a sudden, crime is so bad. No, crime is no worse in Birmingham and Montgomery than it is anywhere else in the state. It's just it's reported more because you've got black men as mayor. Okay.
So in addition to that, Joy, I'm going to ask you to hit the overlay while I hit the video on this. I love it when Democrats actually fight back. And this, while we were talking about when white folks want applause but get the clap instead, this is a perfect example of that.
My amendment gives the committee the opportunity to begin each of its meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance.
So I'd like to offer an amendment to the amendment, adding in the second paragraph, provided, however, the pledge shall not be led by an individual who supported an insurrection against the government of the United States in any way. Let's make this real. If you want to give someone the right to stand before the House Judiciary Committee and lead the Pledge of Allegiance, at a bare minimum, let's guarantee that that person has not participated or supported or in any way helped an overthrow of the government of the United States.
Would the gentleman
It's like
yield?
a simple proposition.
Boop. I mean, don't say you pledge allegiance to the flag, but you stood there on January 6th trying to break into the Capitol.
The flag you tried to stab a cop with.
I mean, oh, and by the way, we didn't cover this in Trump's legal woes. He is being named in a wrongful death suit for one of the people who died in January
Awesome.
6th.
I hope they get
Literally.
everything they want.
Literally being named in that suit. So there's an awful lot going on. I will say that I wouldn't call this good news, but this was something also seen on the interwebs. For those of you who have tried to, have a boiled egg recently, you know that they're running about the price of a Beyonce ticket. So somebody said you can go on ahead and cancel Easter because it's $9.29.
That is crazy.
$8.89 for 18 eggs. Now, raise your hand or drop a smiley face in the comments if you can remember when a dozen eggs was like $1. Because that's this one here.
I've been saying y'all better run to the Dollar Tree, get the plastic egg, and drop a piece of peppermint on them. That's
Listen,
it.
you need to run to Alabama and get you a chicken.
Yeah.
And keep that chicken in your backyard and keep some chicken feed and collect them damn eggs. Because we have a friend who, our friend has a friend at her job who has chickens. And so she brings in eggs and thank you. She brings in eggs in like little baby cartons of 6 and just gives them away. And they're like heirloom eggs. So they're multiple colors and, some might be white, some might be brown or tan or whatever. And it's like, oh, isn't that cute? It's like, cute. That's a car note. Don't tell me the address of that house.
Right.
Give me some damn eggs. Hell. So this is the country in which we live. There's a lot. Yeah, 89 cents. Thank you.
There was a farm or something where there was a fire recently and there were several chickens killed. And that's
and that's what's driving it. There were some 6 million chickens, breeding chickens, that died or were killed. I don't know if it was a combination of fire or sickness or something.
Yeah.
But a lot of breeding chickens died, and so the demand is way up.
Well, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have their own chickens now. I'm sure those are going to be,
Wow, royal eggs, $35 a dozen.
We are not sharing our eggs with anyone. These are just for Archie and Lilibet. That is all. My grandchildren's eggs, my great-grandchildren's eggs, shall be for them alone. Shall not be any sharing of the oof. You get 0 oof.
Not the oof.
That is how we say egg in French.
In French. I know. That's why I was like,
that's why we're looking at you stupid.
I knew when he did it. I was like, oh no, not the off.
L-E-U-F oof.
Your queen voice is so on point though.
Before we leave, we didn't mention this, but this is something. So on TikTok, there is a trend. Your favorite Black national anthem. And my auntie, Aunt Rose, actually put in a group chat for the family saying, I don't know if our kids know the Black national anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, written by James Weldon Johnson. And so Lift Every. I'm now on the Every train. I thought it was Ev apostrophe R-Y. It is not actually. It is, you sing it that way, but the title of the song is Lift Every Voice and Sing. So I don't know if it's true. I know in our Jack and Jill chapter, it gets played. I just don't know if the kids of this era actually know it like I knew it. And it is a tremendously difficult song to sing. It's a big range and all of that. But to the point, go find your favorite version. Maybe there's a gospel singer that you really like. Maybe there's, a version of you singing it when you were a kid at a little church social or something. But go on ahead and share your favorite Lift Every Voice and Sing rendition, the Black National Anthem, so that we can fill Black History Month with voices that are rising high as the listening skysings.
So I'll share full disclosure. There's a video somewhere, and my friend will probably play this later, of me. We had a couple of drinks. It came up in a conversation. Her kids were there along with some other kids, and we talked about the fact that the kids didn't know it. And her husband joked and said, "Well, do you know it?" And I sang all of it.
Nice.
And everyone was like, "Oh, wow, she's going to the second verse." Yes.
There it is.
And then some people, there's a second verse. Yes.
Oh, there's a third verse too. Just in case you didn't know that.
I sang all of it, and they laughed about it. And then our husband joked, was like, "Yeah, she went to HBCU." So did everybody else in the room. But It was like, but that was the joke, because it started because the kids didn't know. And now that you say that, I think I might send those kids a message, because 2 of them are at the HBCU, and say, "Do y'all know now?"
Oh no, if you're at an HBCU, you definitely learn it.
You better know it.
You aren't getting through a convocation without the concert choir, the concert band. And that baton flips up. You got your alma mater that you're gonna know before you leave, and the Black National Anthem. Those are them two songs, plus whatever Beyonce is releasing. But I'm just saying, if you go to HBCU, you are going to learn your alma mater, and you are going to learn Lift Every Voice and Sing. I go back to homecoming every year, and when I'm singing the full 3 verses of because everybody knows the first verse. Our alma mater has 3 verses, like I'm sure a lot of them do. And by the time it gets to the middle of the second verse, people start looking at me because I'm singing extra loud. And I'm like, why is everybody quiet?
Well, you know the alto. Do you know the alto parts of the Spelman hymn, Joy?
I know of them.
Singing low.
He said you know of them.
Joy, I was just wondering. No, I'm not trying to teach. I wasn't trying to test her. I was just wondering if she knew it. Because the sad part was I was in Glee Club, but do you know I never learned the alto part? I figured it out. But I always sang it, just dropped it down, the soprano part, and dropped it down.
We sound real monotone when we sing it. I don't think anybody's doing the alto part.
A couple of people do, but that's it.
That's the great thing about going to an HBCU, because if you go to an HBCU, it's definitely going to be some folk who can sing, and those people are making their own parts that sound great. Like I'll always take like a lyric tenor part and just lay some stuff on top of it, like modifying the third, just like put a little flip on it and then put a little melisma up in that thing. And then people be like, "Oh yeah," just like when you go to a restaurant and it's a Black family who can sing and it's happy birthday, and all of a sudden there are 12 parts.
Yes.
and then the whole restaurant's like, what's going on?
Right.
Is the whole Blackish Tabernacle Choir up in here? I
was actually a part of that once.
Oh, were you?
We were celebrating a friend's birthday at a restaurant in downtown Houston, and we're all just sitting there chilling, and this guy proposed to his girl, and we caught it. We're like, "Oh, what's going on?" And she's like, "Yeah." And we're like, "Oh," so we clapping and everything. And we let them have their minute. It was all being recorded and everything. So we start singing love songs.
Oh, of course.
All night. Like for the next 30, 45 minutes, we are doing a full-on
concert,
like 90s mixtape of R&B, and it's not even about them anymore. I'm not even in the room at this point.
No, it's just about the table.
Put on full-on concert in a restaurant. Right. No classical training. Maybe 2 people knew how to sing. The rest of us just in there loud,
just doing it.
Yeah, but everybody loved it.
Brown eyes,
that was one of the songs. Sigh if I ever fall in love.
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show. I want to give a special shout out to our super second special guest. She is waving. She is giving you neck. She is giving you everything. She is working the entire thing out. It is wonderful to have our Sharpies on the show. We love having you on the show. And so we're looking forward to other people. We actually already have somebody who is on deck for us next week. We may have 2 special guests next week. That's what we're kind of shooting for. So keep the comments coming. Keep inviting your friends. Have them watch the show. We thank everybody who came on just specifically to enjoy Cecily. We hope you stay because she's here every week. So you might as well be here every week too. Come on. Spread the word.
I have to say hey to Anthony because he was my first special. We're my co-super Sharpie.
Exactly.
Hey, Anthony. We tease each other because that's what siblings do.
Yeah. Yay to the J. To the Cee Jay, says Anthony. And we actually had someone who did some counting. Now, I counted on our YouTube page, but we didn't launch our YouTube page until after we had started our Facebook page. We have 77 shows. This is the 78th show just on YouTube. And one of the Sharpies went back and counted our Facebook shows and believes that last week's episode was actually our 100th of the 4-host show. And so I noticed that our first YouTube show was more than 2 years ago. So it is quite possible. I mean, we've taken a few weeks off hither and thither, but we want to thank you all for keeping us on the straight and narrow and watching the show.
Shout out to Gail. Shout out to Gail Simpkins for pulling off the count when nobody else would. So we appreciate you.
We appreciate you. We have a special Sharpie NFT coming to you.
Yes.
Not
that's what we gonna have, an NFT of Sharpaliciousness. And that's what we're going to do. But we just wanted to let you all know that we really, really, really do appreciate you being a part of this community and coming to join us week after week. Jay, exactly. We're going to have to officially certify that with the Guinness people, but I trust you, Gail. You're super spectacular for that. So, that being said, I am Tom Cunningham.
I am Cecily Jackson.
And I am Joy Stevens.
And this is Steel Sharpens Steel.